Well, there you have it. It was the moment we've all been rather waiting for. But in the background, all of that, we did hear the news of the passing of former President F.W. de Klerk. And to get reaction on that, before we even get into the aspects of the medium-term budget policy statement, we are joined by Dion George, who is the Deputy Shadow Minister for Finance for the DA. Dion, thank you so much for your time. Initial thoughts on the passing of former President F.W. de Klerk.
We're very sorry at the passing of the former president. He made a very important contribution to South Africa's democracy, and our sincere condolences to his family and to his friends and to his colleagues.
So let's get into the business of the day, the aspects that came out in this particular budget speech. I mean, there's a whole host here. My scribbles, I hope I will be able to read them quite properly. But let's touch on the key aspects for you. What stood out?
Well, we set out our expectations beforehand, and those were disappointed. That the minister's saying that any additional overrun on revenue because of the commodity boom will be used towards reducing debt and also supporting vulnerable people. We support that. But we were specifically looking for action steps to be taken to accelerate our post-pandemic economic growth. We didn't see that. We wanted a lot more on Eskom. Although the minister spoke about generation, increasing generation, there's certainly no clear plan, and that is very bad for business, as we know, and very bad for growth. Also, we wanted to hear something about accelerating business opportunities, for example, for smaller business and entrepreneurs. Hopefully, we'll see something in February then. Also, if we look at debt management, it's clear that the debt is continuing to rise, and that debt is now the biggest expenditure. It's more, if you add up health and you add up social development and you add up other support, you find that it is much more than that. And the problem that we have with that is obviously we're heading for a debt spiral. So I think that the steps that he has proposed aren't going to work. Also, the public sector wage bill, we certainly wanted to hear something about that, and we didn't have that. We also wanted to have some kind of commitment about not increasing taxes and not having any additional taxes. We probably see something about that in February as well, but we won't support any additional taxes. We are pleased that he is talking about supporting vulnerable people, because that is very important. Also on pension reform, he has said something about it. We don't know what he's going to say in February. We certainly believe that he should be allowing members to leverage their pension funds in the form of a loan, for example, but there does seem to be progress on that. But on a whole, we don't see the pathway forward for reducing debt, and we don't see the pathway forward on economic growth.
From a spending point of view, does it look a little bit interesting, especially when you look at it from the spending point for the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, if you look at spending, the plan is to actually reduce spending, but I mean the proof is in the eating. You have to see that actually happens, and I don't have very much confidence that is actually going to happen.
Thank you so much for your time. Well, we're now going to cross to my colleague Bolelane Philip, who's also standing by for more analysis.
Thank you so much, Nastasia. But before we get into the mini-budget reactions, we want to take reaction on the passing away of the former president, F.W. de Klerk. Joining me now is ACDP Chief Whip, Mr. Steve Swart. As the ACDP, your message on the passing of former Mr. de Klerk?
Well, we'd like to, on behalf of the ACDP, express our deepest condolences to the family and friends of former President F.W. de Klerk. He played a vital role in the peaceful transition of South Africa in 1994, in the run-up to 1994, and our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family at this sad time.
Let's go straight to the budget presented this afternoon. As the ACDP, do you think it struck the right chords?
Well, I think firstly, the issue of economic growth, which is up at 5%, is encouraging. There is a slight good news from the budget that was presented in February. That is the economic growth. And of course, we see tax collection is up by 120 billion on the commodity boom. That is encouraging. However, when you look at the fiscal consolidation and you see the debt levels, they are alarmingly high. And as the minister indicated himself, debt service costs now are crowding out the payments and the other budget items, such as job creation and crime. So these are huge concerns. So we have to reduce government expenditure. We've got to stick to the budget ceiling. And of course, to do that, you've got to stimulate economic growth. You have to collect more tax. And of course, what we also have always said, we've got to address corruption so that the money that has been stolen is collected. From the ACDP's perspective, we also believe the lockdown must come to an end. We've got to stimulate economic growth. We've got to implement the restoration path to create jobs and stimulate economic growth.
All right, Steve Swart, ACDP Chief Whip, thank you very much for your time. We now cross to Anastasia for more reaction on the floor.
Thank you so much, Bulelani. Well, I've got Voter Wessels representing the FF Plus to get reaction from him about the medium-term budget policy statement and, of course, the news that we brought to you a little bit earlier on the passing of former President F.W. de Klerk. Mr. Wessels, thank you so much for your time. Let's start off with the medium-term budget policy statement. What were your thoughts?
Well, the minister made the correct noises. He said the correct things that will get the economy going. The question will be, is it implementable? And one of the biggest problems currently is that our expenditure is out of control. And the adjustment budget does not really curb expenditure, especially with regards to the public wage bill. And it is still out of control. To actually sustainably save the fiscus and the fiscal position that we are in currently, we need to curb expenditure and we need economic growth. And currently we do not have investor certainty to actually get economic growth going.
Let's touch on the passing of former President F.W. de Klerk. Your sentiments?
Well, our sincere condolences with his family. It is very sad when someone passes away. He did suffer from cancer, and then there is relief as well. But our sincere condolences. He did make a contribution to South Africa, and he will be remembered for the good and for the bad.
Mr. Wessels, thank you so much for your time. That is Voter Wessels representing the FF Plus, giving us his reaction on that medium-term budget policy statement, also touching on aspects that he thought was missing. Hopefully, as we continue to build up, we will start seeing a little bit more clarity in February. But over to my colleague, Bulelani Philip.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. Again, of course, we're going to jump straight into the reaction. I've got now the PAC President, Mr. Mzwanele Nyonso. Thank you so much for your time. For the PAC, does this budget appease what you were looking for?
No, it doesn't make sense. I don't even know what this man was saying. He was just here to tell us about his experiences with journalists and questions and answers and how he responded and so on. We want a budget that will talk to the poor people. A budget that will be biased towards the oppressed people. A budget that will come up with jobs because people are unemployed. A budget that will put bread on top of the table of our people. People are suffering. It's 27 years of betrayal, and it must end.
You did touch on the issue of a two-pot system for people to access their retirement funds. Are you happy that this may actually assist those people who are debt trapped?
No, definitely. Definitely, they must access their retirement funds. It's their money anyway. It would be good if people can try to live a debt-free life. So if they can access those monies, they'll be able to pay their debts, and hopefully they will live a debt-free life. Anyway, everybody wants to live a debt-free life. So if it is true, they must access their money. It's their money anyway. Before these guys steal it, because they steal everything.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mzwanele Nyonso. He is the PAC President.